Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another video for Eve Echoes. Now, on the Catskull Cartel community Discord, I decided to pose a question to my community members. I wanted to know what questions they wanted to have answered before they started in Eve Echoes, before they started their journey in New Eden, and what kind of things they thought that new players should know before beginning the game. So things like, does your starting race matter, what's the difference between shield and armor tanking, all that kind of thing. Now, the response to that has been utterly humongous, way beyond what I expected. So what I'm going to do today is essentially, on screen you'll see I'm going to go down the actual topic, and I'm going to quick-fire answer every single question that was posed to me, as kind of a beginner's guide to getting started in Eve Echoes, the frequently asked questions. Now, if you do enjoy this video, let me know by hitting like on it, consider subscribing to the channel for all things mobile gaming and plenty more Eve Echoes content besides, and let me know what kind of content you'd like to see me make in future, what topics you'd like to see me cover, etc., either by commenting down below in the comment section, or by finding me on the various different social media channels like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc., or of course by coming and joining the Catskull Cartel Discord. You don't need to be joining the Catskull Cartel in-game to join the Discord. This is a Discord that is heavy Eve Echoes community focus, and the corporation channels will be private, so don't worry, you're welcome to come join even if you're not joining the corporation. Anyway, enough rambling, let's jump straight in to answering these questions one by one. Now, Pucko asks, how much money could you make from running missions in a frigate for the first few days based off beta? Now, that really does depend on exactly what you're doing and exactly how you go about it. Ultimately, if you're just going into a frigate and going out doing things like ratting and encounters, some of the quick delivery quests and that kind of thing, you can make between 10 and 30,000 ISK per encounter, and as we know, those can take anything from 10 minutes to 30 minutes, so you're looking at per hour, you're probably looking at an easy sort of maybe 40, 50,000 ISK, easily. I would say, yeah, you can probably earn about 50,000 ISK easily in an hour early on. That's not including if you set up planetary interaction to sell that on the market. So in the first few days, you should be able to make $1 million or so. Fairly straightforwardly, just in the first few days. What's the difference between starting as Alpha, asks Ghost in the Shell, then going Omega when you hit the skills cap, versus starting out as Omega from day one? Well, obviously, if you start out as Omega from day one, you will have everything unlocked. If they do put any restrictions on marketeering or industry, etc., then you'll have access to those. For the most part, though, it is pretty much going to be just the skill points. I mean, you earn 30 skill points per minute standard. If you go for the basic Omega, it's 30 plus 5 is what we've seen, so you earn a few extra skill points per minute. That's not really much. If things like the Alpha industry and market are more than enough for an Alpha account, there's no real difference until you start hitting the locked content like Tier 8, technology, the ships, and advanced skills. So unless you're one of these people who's going to want to rush through one particular skill tree, like for example you've decided you want to do just straight up, for example off the top of my head, you skill missiles, you get missiles straight up to level 5 and you want to go into advanced missiles, you'll need Omega for that. In fairness, there's no real need to go into advanced skills that early, so in short, I suppose the difference between starting Alpha, then going Omega when you hit the skill cap, versus starting out as Omega, is it's negligible. It's only going to matter if there's something that is locked behind Omega that you want from day one, which from what we've seen isn't going to be huge, just mainly the skills. Now, what's the skill rate difference between Alpha and Omega? Omega, again, earns 30 skill points per minute. Alpha earns 30 skill points per minute. Omega Basic earns 35, and from what we've seen, Omega Plus, if you want to call it that, I refuse to call it Basic and Standard. The higher tier Omega is 30 plus 25, so 55 per minute, which is 5 per minute less than Beta. Beta was 60 per minute. So it's 30 for Standard Alpha, 35 for Basic Omega, and Omega Plus will be 55 skill points. Kami di Sama. Does autopilot through systems work while you're not playing, or does the game need to be active for your ship to continue on autopilot to its destination? From what we have so far, you can literally hit autopilot, close the game down and you'll get to your destination. Your phone will then send you a notification once you arrive. Again, don't do that anywhere outside of high security systems, simply because your ship does still move in the game. That is to say, if you were to pilot from A to B, and A to B goes through low or null security systems, I will be able to see your ship in the overview, I will see it moving past me, I will be able to lock it, I will be able to web it, and like neutralize it and blow it up. That is something I can do, so do not autopilot in low sec. Kozak22 asks, what is the best and easiest way to earn money? God, there is no best or easiest way. Now, I covered a lot of this in the beta. There are lots of different ways that require different amounts of effort. Ultimately, if you are willing just to sit there AFK going autopilot A to B to C to D to E to F, hauling can be a great way to make money because it doesn't actually require you to have your phone even on. You just literally pick up the point, autopilot to its drop off, close your phone down, do something else. When you get the notification, come in and do it that way. It's not overly lucrative, as we saw in the beta. Hauling got nerfed quite considerably on its rewards, but it does require almost no effort whatsoever as long as you're in high security. If you want a really good and easy way to make money early on, you can shoot out into nullsec with a decent mining ship and just mine through a load of really rare asteroids, come back and sell all of that. But of course, there is a risk reward involved in that, in that you're going to be in nullsec. Chances are you can, well, not chances are, you can be locked down and blown up. So EVE works on very much a risk reward. You can sit and just go AFK in a mining belt in high security and just mine an entire asteroid belt down over a couple of hours, but it's not going to be as lucrative as doing that same thing in nullsec. But then again, the high sec version, you can kind of do it AFK, whereas the nullsec requires you to be a bit more focused. So you kind of got a little from column A, a little from column B right there. It's a risk-reward kind of thing. And of course, even then, just running basic encounters. I did just basic encounters a lot of the beta. Flying around systems, delivering water or troops to where they need to go, and then occasionally destroying pirates out in anomalies and stuff like that as well. You can make a lot of money doing that. It's fairly straightforward and easy to do. Venerari, I've heard that people are planning to run multiple accounts to specialize in different things, mining, industry, PvP, ratting. As a new player who's never played EVE Online or EVE Echoes and only plans to have one account, are there any combination of specializations that can be combined and still be effective, or will skilling more than one profession gimp you too much? The idea of picking one thing to me is daunting when you don't know if you'll enjoy it once you start. Yeah, I get that. That's a common theme, and this is a really, really good question to ask there, Venerari. What you need to understand is that ultimately most skills in EVE Online and EVE Echoes, especially in EVE Echoes actually, they come in 5 tiers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you skill at 1, you've got the basic. If you skill at 5, it's maximum. So for example, you can have mining 1 to 5, and then you have advanced mining 1 to 5, and then expert mining 1 to 5. Now ultimately that 5th point, the last skill point, takes a lot more skill points to actually train, and the bonus is usually on par with the 3 to 4 or the 2 to 3 level sort of thing. It's not a huge increase, but it does require a huge amount of investment. Now what this means is that, for example, using reprocessing as an example, if you decide that reprocessing is something you want to do and you want to do it on a decent scale, you would probably take common ore reprocessing to skill level 4, then you would take rare ore to skill level 4, and then you would take a super rare ore to skill level 4, then go back and do the level 5 ones later, just because those skill points will allow you to massively... look at it this way, getting those to level 4 gives you 80% of the skill for about 50% of the skill points. That last 20% costs a lot more in skill points and doesn't give you a huge benefit. Now, that theory can then be extrapolated outwards. That means, for example, someone like me who's interested in combat, if I skill into projectile turrets, and energy turrets, and hybrid turrets, and drones, and missiles, that's a lot of skill points spent on 5 different things. Whereas if I spent all of those skill points just in projectile turrets, my projectile turrets are going to be a lot more damaging. And that's kind of what some people here are talking about. They want to have an account that is going to be running just mining skills. They're then going to have another account that is running just the reprocessing skills, and another account running just the industry skills. That means they have all of their skill points on each of those accounts maximized into one single character, which means the miner goes off and does all of his mining very lucratively, and then passes all of those ores to the reprocessor, who reprocesses those ores very well, and then passes that on to the industrialist, who makes the ships at a faster and cheaper rate. And so ultimately it comes down to how invested and how adamant you are to be the top dog. Ultimately, during the beta, I made a lot of money mining and reprocessing and actually selling ships, despite the fact that I was a combat specialist. I could still do those things. I could still jump into a venture and go out mining. Just my venture wouldn't wouldn't harvest as much as someone who's skilled a lot heavier in mining would. So they can kind of get an advantage. They're going to be earning more money than you, but then again, EVE isn't necessarily all about dem leaderboards. You can be the best miner, and does that really matter? The point is, have fun. Have fun doing whatever it is you want to do. You don't have to be the most lucrative and most renowned miner out there. You make your money with mining in any way, just have fun with it. Anyway, moving on. Cortex, what is better in which situation? Armor tanking or shield tanking? Best options for PvP or PvE, the do's and don'ts in EVE Echoes. So this is really, really a difficult question to answer, and it kind of comes down to how armor tanking, shield tanking, and various weapons work. So Amar use energy weapons mostly. Lasers. Now, lasers tend to, again, not always, but they tend to do electromagnetic and thermal damage, and electromagnetic and thermal damage aren't resisted very well by shields, so Amar weapons tend to cut through shields very, very quickly, which means if you're going up against an Amar fleet, you kind of are probably going to want to go more armor than you are shield. Vice versa, something like a Minmatar projectile turret, autocannons, etc., deal mainly explosive and kinetic, which are absorbed by shields, but deal a lot of damage to armor. So you kind of have to work with what your weapons are good at and what your targets are weak to. There is no better or worse with armor tanking or shield tanking, and ultimately it tends to depend on the ship. I did a video actually on this, and you'll hear me say this an awful lot throughout this video. I did a video on the difference between armor tanking and shield tanking and how to work out which one is better than the other. It basically comes down to the ship in question. Certain ships are better shield tanked, certain ships are better armor tanked, some ships have sort of an equal 50-50, either one could work. Of course, it's also going to depend on your skills. If you've gone heavy into things like shield management, or armor repair skills, then obviously you know which ones of those are going to be better for you. A 50-50 ship that is equal on armor tanking or shield tanking, obviously you're still going to armor tank it if you are skilled into armor tanking. You're not just going to go, oh, well, I'll go shield tanking. To the same point, if you're skilled into armor tanking, you're probably not going to want to fly many ships that are shield tank specialists. And that really does depend on the ship. As for best options for PvP or PvE, in regards to armor tanking or shield tanking, there is none. It entirely depends on what you're going up against. If you expect to be going up against energy weapons, then you're going to be wanting to use an armor tank. If you're going up against projectile weapons, you're going to want a shield tank. Whereas, of course, you can even go things like hull tanking or just kiting is another, speed tanking, as some call it, which is a great way to do it. Otherwise, if you're asking best options for PvP or PvE in regards to ships, destroyers tend to be pretty good. Destroyer gangs and frigate gangs tend to be a great way of doing things. You have someone in something like a slasher who warps in and locks your target down quickly. Then the others warp in with things like, I'm using Minmatar examples here, like Thrashers, or some of the more brutal ships, they warp in and then rip the target to shreds. You can, in bigger engagements, you could even have something like a burst going along with you in order to actually heal up your ships. So that slasher, for example, it's going to come in, it's going to take a lot of damage as it locks a target into position. You can have a burst come in and actually repair it quickly up so that you don't lose that one as well. There's all kinds of crazy stuff you can do. In one-on-one PvP, PvE, it really does depend. Frigates and destroyers tend to be the better options simply because they tend to be cheaper to replace. I then asked, because it's a note for myself, how can you log off safely? A couple of people had asked this, but I didn't see it come into the Echoes FAQ chat here. If you log out in HiSec anywhere, that's absolutely fine, because obviously you can't be targeted in HiSec. If you are outside of a station and you log off, your ship will stay in space for 10 to 15 minutes after you log off. That means if I'm in nullsec and I'm just drifting in an asteroid belt and I just close the app down, or even if I do the safe log out and go down and actually hit log out, if I am undocked in the middle of an asteroid belt, I put my phone down, I go off and do whatever. Within 10 minutes I come back and open my game up and my ship has been destroyed, because it hangs around in space. If you are going to log off, I wholeheartedly recommend you do so either in high security only or docked. Get used to only logging off when you're docked and you'll do well in low and null sec, but if you're in high sec you can log off anywhere simply because PvP is not a thing. Can we learn all skills? Yes and no. Technically, you can learn all skills. You are capable of learning all skills. Because skill points are earned over time, basic of 30 skill points per minute, which you then choose how those are going to be allocated, what you're going to have those learn into. Because of how that works, you are never going to... I mean, there are people who've been playing since the start of EVE Online who still do not have every single skill trained, because it would take literally hundreds of years. Some of these skills, when it looks insane, if you're not used to it, when you come into EVE Online, you can look at some skills and they take 2 or 3 days of real time to train. You kind of just set it going and then off you go on holiday. I used to do that. I used to genuinely set up a skill queue that would be maybe a week or so, go away from the game like on a holiday or something, come back, and I'm still training some of those skills. It's insane. Any skill can theoretically be learned, obviously assuming you've got Omega, so that all of the high tier advanced skills etc are unlocked. You can learn any skill, you are able to learn any skill, but learning every skill is not going to be possible. To add to Venerari's question, what are those core professions and what does the day-to-day gameplay look like? Okay, great question there, Fort Mana. Essentially, this comes down to who you are and what you're doing. If, for example, you're a miner, then day-to-day gameplay is going to look like you logging in, collecting all of your, like checking through the markets to see what's selling, checking through orders, that kind of thing, going out, finding a belt, mining it down, coming back to market and selling it. Of course, you may, if you're in more lucrative mining positions, that may require you to be teaming up with other people. For instance, you can have people running like strip miners, they then jettison their canisters. Once their ore hold is full, they just load up all of the ores into canisters and jettison those out. Another ship comes along and tractor beams all those into position. A third ship then picks all of those up in a hauler, runs it back to market, puts it on the market to sell, then comes back and gets ready to collect the next shipment of ores. So those are kind of what the day-to-day there is. For me, as someone who's more involved in ratting and sort of the encounters, my day-to-day is I kind of come online, I check through my mail, etc. I'm then going to start doing some encounters. I'm going to move out into space, start doing some encounters, blowing some ships up, collecting bounties. I'm going to keep my eyes open for possible PvP targets while I'm out there, because I'll be in low and null sec. Destroy those. Maybe if I'm in... if I get bored, I might even do a bit of prowling, just go around asteroid belts looking for targets, especially find a friend who, again, has a nice big ship with a cargo hold. I blow up a target, move on, he moves in and loots that target, off we go. Otherwise, it can be anything. It can be anything. It's like saying, what's your day-to-day example in World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV? Back when I used to play a lot on EVE Online, I'd be doing all that kind of stuff, but occasionally I'd get pulled into some big, like, firefight that was going on between our corporations, or even at times I would just sit in an asteroid belt with our miners, and our miners are doing all their strip mining and that, and I would just be there in a Rifter or Hurricane or whatever the needs decreed at the time, often a Burst or a Scythe for healing as well, and I would just sit around, just acting as protection. Same with some of the bigger hauls, we'd have someone maybe who was relocating from high security to low security, doing a big shipment, carrying all of their cruisers and stuff in something like a Terra or a Mammoth, bringing that through. I would then follow alongside them, just to make sure that if anyone tried to lock them down and destroy them, and that I was there to help on that.